What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with another podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? We got a short but sweet one this week. New Mad Max film, Furiosa, prequel, 9 years after Fury Road. Very exciting. Then a bunch of new music. Vince Staples, NewJeans, and RM from BTS. So make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod, Linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist link below. Let me know it's good. And let's get right into it. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of RM's second album, Right Place, Wrong Person. RM of BTS back with his second solo album, and this is the first release since he has begun his Korean military service enlistment, which began last December. So you have to imagine this album has been in the can for some time. Any RM solo work is going to require a lot of attention because RM, to me, is the most interesting member of BTS musically. You know, of course, for years now, he has been a producer, an arranger, a writer for the group, as well as himself. On this album, he co-wrote all but one song and co-produced 9 of the 11 tracks. Like, he is a fully developed musical person in K-pop, which of course you love to see. Not everyone involved is to that degree. RM has also made the most interesting solo music of all the BTS members to me as well. I quite liked the last solo album, Indigo. I thought the song Lonely in particular really stood out to me. But really, this new album, Right Place, Wrong Person, is kind of a continuation of Indigo's lyrical themes, even if musically it's quite a departure from what that album was like. To me, RM's second solo album, Right Place, Wrong Person, is an interesting album for its musical choices on the part of RM, and certainly continues the thematic steps that RM took on the last album, Indigo. Ultimately, this is a very understated album, kind of nodding to some alternative elements, but really it's a mood piece. With a few exceptions, there's not like some really grabby like headline songs the way the last album had with tracks like Lonely or Wildflower. We don't really have that this time around. It's quite understated, almost like a slow burn from RM as he's, again, talking about the themes he has gotten into lately about loneliness and purpose and trying to find a direction for his life. And I find it pretty introspective, but this time around on the album, I don't know if the music quite pops as frequently as I would like. I definitely like RM when he's a bit more energetic, and that's why the song Lost really stands out to me. To me, that's the best song on this new album. Very unique energy, background vocals from like a child. I'm not sure if that's a sample or what, but it sounds really cool. But RM is just really popping vocally on that. He also sounds really good on Groin. I love the Little Sims feature and the Moses Sumney feature. Very choice people to collab with. Very cool. I think musically, drums, keys, there's a lot of fun instrumentation throughout the album, but it doesn't quite wow me on an individual song basis the way some of his past work has. But clearly this is what RM wanted to make. This is an album for him. It's like a cathartic exercise to explore these themes over these two records. So the fact that we got a second RM solo album during his enlistment period, I mean, that's like bonus material to me. I was not expecting that. So, of course, we are eagerly awaiting RM's return, as well as the rest of BTS, probably towards the end of next year. I'm a bit skeptical of that 2025 timeline they threw out there, just because RM, Jungkook V, and Jimin, I believe, they all didn't begin the military service until December, so like 6 months ago. So they have at least a year, if not a year and a half to go. We don't exactly know the detail of that, right? So even if the other guys finish up a little before that, like BTS as a unit, I feel like doesn't really make much sense to return realistically until 2026. Obviously, you need time to make music. You need time to reset and come back together. So we know it'll be worth the wait, of course, but time will tell. Just some other tracks I thought Nuts had a funky bass line. Domodachi, I like the drums and the horns on that. Then guitar kind of kicks in, Little Sims shows up. Fun arrangement on that one. I mentioned Groin. Heaven, though, like Heaven's like one of those songs that like right after Groin, big moment, right? Heaven takes you right back down. It's very low energy, then picks you back up again with Lost. This is my favorite song. Like it's hard to stick with. The last song, Come Back to Me, which was the lead single, like the drums and the keys on that, and the guitar kind of kicks in at the end. But ultimately, I think you just have to go into it knowing it's a bit more understated. It's a bit more of a lyrical work, it's not really going to necessarily pop as big as some other stuff from RM, some other stuff from BTS has. And you just have to kind of accept that. And it's, again, to me, this is like bonus material, like an album like this coming out. And RM clearly has a lot of artistic intention that's very well established at that point. Even look at the music videos for this. They're very detailed, very high budget for sure as well, but very conceptual, right? And he remains, to me, a very intriguing figure within K-pop because he's definitely one of the more artistic faces we see and hear from on a regular basis. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of RM's second solo album, Right Place, Wrong Person? What was your favorite song? What did you like most about it? And for more K-pop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of NewJeans' new single album, How Sweet, featuring 2 songs, How Sweet and Bubblegum. This is the first release from NewJeans in about 10 months. It's been a long time already, but NewJeans is back, and of course NewJeans, one of the most significant and popular and noteworthy K-pop groups of the 4th generation. They've had a really rapid rise and have made a lot of great music. I've been a huge fan of them to this point, so of course I'm eagerly anticipating any new music for them. Unfortunately, How Sweet is coming at a challenging time for the group, really due to no fault of the group itself, and I'll get into some of this label drama at the end, but let's just get into the music first. I think at this point with NewJeans, and especially if you're a big fan of them like me, the bar is high. They've made a lot of bangers, a lot of great songs, but due to their, Y2K aesthetic, kind of 90s R&B vibe, they've really paved a new way in terms of, modern K-pop sounds by very much looking inward with this youthful music that's still very much eschewing the more in vogue girl crush aesthetic that you get in a lot of K-pop right now. Again, they've made a lot of great songs. The last time they did a single album, a 2-song drop, it was Ditto and OMG, 2 massive hits for them. OMG on my top 10 songs of 2023. Of course, 10 months ago on the Get Up EP, you had Big Song, Super Shy, their huge breakthrough song, of course, but also ETA, another banger. And of course, on the debut, they had Attention, Hype Boy, and Cookie, 3 bangers. So, the bar is high. And to me, How Sweet doesn't quite compare to their past work. I think the song Bubblegum still really stands out as a strong NewJeans song, but when the bar is high and the hit rate is really strong, eventually you're not going to have songs that are quite as strong as the past work, and that's just bound to happen. It's not the end of the world, and it's really not the end of the world for NewJeans because they've already announced that 2 more songs are on the way soon. 2 Japanese singles are coming out on June 21st, Supernatural and Right Now. I will, of course, be talking about those when they come out. With How Sweet, I think musically at first I thought was a bit more interesting because Bubblegum, the music video actually came out a month ago, even though it didn't hit digital streaming platforms until today with the release here. So you heard Bubblegum, and Bubblegum on first listen didn't quite grab me, but this time around I actually think it's the better song. And that's because when I listen to How Sweet, those first verses, you have Heron and Danielle, they're fine. They sound okay. And then the Danielle refrain, it's kind of fun and a different affectation to that point in the song. And then you get the chorus of How Sweet. The chorus sounds good from Hain and Danielle, but my issue with it is, don't you know how sweet it tastes? They immediately repeat that 3 times, and it really kind of kills the momentum of the chorus for me. Even if I think it sounds good, the mix is good, the tempo is strong. It's a weaker chorus for the NewJeans standard. It is what it is to me. It's just not quite there. The second verse, you have Heron again. I think Minji's pretty fun on that verse. The good karma line from her, the melody stands out. It's pretty nice. Ultimately, though, Hani only has 1 line at the end of that second verse. The bridge is a bit repetitive, doesn't really grab me. And then, yeah, you kind of repeat through the choruses again. Hani's not really a big part of that song. Clearly, to this point, Hani has been the most consistent vocal member of the group. She has often the best lines, some of the stickiest lyrics, and often is a big part of all the songs. Of course, I understand why they want to kind of spread the wealth and build up the rest of the group, but it did kind of stand out to me that nothing really popped for me, and that also coincided with a song where Hani isn't really doing a whole lot on her own. So it's fine. I don't think this song is bad per se. I did notice in the music video a really absurd Coca-Cola product placement. I didn't know they were still doing that after they literally made a whole sponsored song, which of course that's the actual worst NewJeans song is the Zero song. We don't have to talk about that. This song was a Danielle co-write. She's done that before. Also, I just want to shout out like aesthetically, like Hani rocking the short hair, definitely a big change. But then that brings us to the second song, Bubblegum, which again I heard a month ago and I kind of dismissed it. I was like, it doesn't quite do it for me. I'll revisit it maybe. Then hearing it again today, I'm like, wow, wait, this song is like super bouncy. I actually quite enjoy this. And I think that first verse grabs you because it's Hani and Hain. Like they really know how to bring it. And the hair and refrain, I think, is really catchy. Minji kind of giving you a different cadence. I don't love the chorus, but I do think it's pretty catchy from Danny and Hani. Again, just quite bouncy. Another weak bridge on this song doesn't really do much for me. Verse 2, Minji and Danny, I think it's good. Danielle on the high note. She doesn't do that all that often, but that really stood out to me. I'd love to hear more of that in the future. And then you have Heron and Hani on the refrain. Solid song. Again, like NewJeans has a lot of bangers. Like this is going to be towards the bottom of the list. It's okay. But I do think this song has some replayability to it because it ultimately just kind of bounces and like that vibe that I think that easy melody that comes with the NewJeans sound very much present on a song like Bubblegum. So, I don't want to say I'm disappointed in the release. It's 2 songs. I definitely put more value on bigger projects. I guess once we hear the other 2 Japanese singles, we can analyze all 4 of the songs together and think about it that way, given they're coming out in such quick succession. They've also announced that NewJeans will be on tour in 2025, which leads me to believe there's a chance they release more music in the fall. Of course, we still haven't had a full-length album from them, but we know one will be coming, so we'll see about that. But of course, I think that's going to be a massive tour, one of the bigger K-pop tours in a time when K-pop touring is very, very strong. So that'll be very exciting. I hope they do a lot of US shows because I would like to go. In conclusion, NewJeans' new single album, How Sweet, 2 songs, How Sweet and Bubblegum. It's not as strong as some of their past work, but again, that's a high bar to clear. NewJeans has been operating at such a high level, making such great songs that even if they make some songs that are just good or just okay, it's going to be a bit of a step down. To me, the song Bubblegum, which had been out before, on further review, I think the bouncy nature to it, stronger presence of Hani on the vocals compared to the song How Sweet. That's why Bubblegum to me stands out as a stronger song. To me, How Sweet itself doesn't really wow me as much as I want it to. It just doesn't have some pop moments, and the fact that the chorus has repetitive lines to it really kind of detracts it from me. So ultimately, it's not the most significant NewJeans release that we've gotten in the whirlwind 2 years they've been debuted. But again, that's okay. Looking forward to the 2 new Japanese singles in a month's time. NewJeans continue to dominate. And saying all that, it is quite interesting what has been going on over at their label parent company Hybe and what's been going on, with all the sub-labels. So one kind of off note, it is kind of peculiar that Hybe would, under Big Hit, of course, would release RM of BTS's second solo album the same day as 2 new NewJeans songs. Like, why would you kind of cannibalize each other, especially given the unsurprisingly strong popularity of RM? Like, why would you take attention away from your other newer group? Kind of a weird choice. Like, you could have just released one of these, next week. Like, it doesn't know what's the difference, right? Don't quite understand the choice there. But I think more interesting, more controversial has been what's been going on between NewJeans, sub-label Adore and another Hybe sub-label, BFit Lab. BFit Lab, of course, the sub-label of ENHYPEN, one of the biggest male K-pop groups we have right now. But also recently, BFit Lab debuted a new girl group, Illit, and they had some pretty strong success with their song Magnetic. And, the Adore and BFit Lab have basically been beefing over Illit, basically kind of, jacking the NewJeans vibe. And of course, NewJeans got a lot of attention, a lot of love for doing a sound that had not been active at all in K-pop. This Y2K youthful aesthetic, very much 90s R&B inspired, different from the rest of modern K-pop. And it is a bit curious that Hybe would then release another group under their umbrella that's kind of trying to jack the same thing. I would expect that from the other labels like JYP or YG or SM, for example. But to have it happen in your own house is a bit strange. And there's been a lot of back and forth now. Now there's actually a defamation lawsuit coming back towards Ador. And basically, it's just not productive really to anyone. But I think more structurally, I do find it curious that you would try and debut another group doing something similar. I'll say to me, next time Illit releases a project, I'll talk about it, but I haven't really been wowed by the early stuff. I'll just leave it at that. But again, this kind of infighting, especially on a new group who's still coming into their own as public figures, it's not helpful for any of them. And of course, it has nothing to do with the groups, right? This is really management issues. So you would hope this would be resolved, but kind of unforeseen issues over at Hybe, which of course is, like the king of K-pop labels right now, just because of its massive scale. So more to come for sure. New headlines are coming out every week. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully it doesn't get in the way of the NewJeans momentum. I wouldn't expect it to, but we'll see what happens with that. And I'll be talking about the NewJeans Japanese singles next month, and next time Illit releases something, I'll talk about them too. But yeah, let me know, what'd you think of the NewJeans single album, How Sweet? Which song did you like more? How would you compare it to their past work? Are you a little down on it like me? Either way, let me know. And for more K-pop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Vince Staples' sixth album, Dark Times. Vince is back, first album since Ramona Park Broke My Heart back in 2022, an album I liked quite a bit, had that album in my top 10 of that. And now Vince is back with his last album on Def Jam, of course, the label he's been home to for over 10 years. I mean, Hell Can Wait, the first release, that was 2014. It's been a long time. And we already know exactly where Vince will be going next because he's actually signed a deal with Motown already. Motown also under the UMG umbrella like Def Jam. The last two Vince albums were on Motown and not Def Jam, so we're kind of closing the loop on Def Jam now with Dark Times. Kind of funny label machinations there. But either way, Vince Staples is one of my favorite rappers, and he has been for a long time. I think he's one of the most unique figures we have in hip-hop, and certainly one of the most significant rappers from the West Coast in a long time. And of course, Vince himself has become quite the personality, quite the celebrity in his own right, even though he's never become a superstar rapper per se, obviously finding a lot of success with his Netflix show last year. So Vince is, I think, in a lot of people's lives in a bunch of different ways, doing some acting outside of that show as well. And now on the music front, Vince Staples' sixth album, Dark Times, is very much a continuation of the sonic evolution of Vince Staples we've gotten the last few albums. Namely, Vince Staples has gotten a bit more melodic, a bit more vulnerable or softer, you could say, in his delivery, but he's really matching that with just choice production the entire time. Much like Ramona Park Broke My Heart, Dark Times has a lot of really listenable, fun to revisit songs that still fit in this grander context of the album from Vince. And it's still a short and succinct listen, only like 30 minutes. And yet there's just so many keepers. In particular, I have to shout out track 6, Etouffee, which, oh my god, is this special. This is an amazing Vince track. So bouncy, still has a hard delivery from Vince. Verses are great, and then the chorus is so big and so illustrious. I think this is an incredible song where you have Vince talking about getting label feedback, paying homage to Cash Money and Louisiana. It's super cool. In general, though, it's really cool, I think, that Vince has kind of honed in on this new version of his sound, because if you remember 2 albums back, the self-titled album Vince Staples was kind of the debut of this melodic Vince, you could say, and it was definitely a more polarizing album, definitely one of the least popular of his works. But then with Ramona Park Broke My Heart, and now again with Dark Times, I think Vince has found kind of a happy medium where he still can kind of give like a banger quality to these songs, even though Vince is clearly giving a bit more of an understated, introspective type delivery. And that's what makes a song to me like Etouffee so cool, because then Vince kind of debuts like a little bit of a hard delivery on the verse. It stands out even more. Going through the track list here, I thought track 2, Black and Blue, stood out. I like the kind of jazzy vibe to that. The Saudi Arabia Choppa's line was pretty funny. Government Cheese, I think, is pretty good in terms of lyrical message from Vince. Vince is always a pretty reflective, introspective guy, never one to shy away from talking about his past. And now also having the, clairvoyance to realize that his station has changed and the kind of survivor's guilt he might feel from that as a result. Track 5, Shame on the Devil, probably my least favorite just because it's a bit slower in terms of vibe, in terms of tempo compared to most of their other songs. I've talked a lot about Etouffee already. I like this song so much. I want to just shout out, I think probably some of the strongest rating on this. Label trying to give me feedback, tell me to bring the streets back. Fans said they want 2015 Vince. Drop Big Fish Club in week since. Damn, that's really, I think, wise and precise about the Vince experience. I enjoyed Justin, kind of a pure storytelling song, but still has really nice, strong drums. Those drums continue on the next song, Radio. Nothing Matters, awesome drums mixed with keys. The outro singing, I think, was a really nice touch. Track 11, Little Homies. Here's melodic Vince, to a T. Super dancey. Kick drums from Kalen Ellis beat. Sounds awesome. Nice fast flow from Vince. The Life Hard But I Go Harder hook, I think, is quite sticky. Then you have outro singing vocals again. This kind of reminds me of how Lemonade worked off the last album, or Magic, where these are super bouncy, melodic Vince songs that you can listen to as singles but still fit in the context of the album, the context of the message. Track 12, Freeman, I thought was kind of funny. It starts out with these 50s Frankie Valli ass vocals, pretty funny, but then Vince giving you some really reflective lyrics on his journey. And then the last song, Why Won't the Sun Come Out, features no Vince at all. It's actually Santa Gold kind of speaking about a dream and dropping some kind of conclusive thoughts. Kind of interesting. Thinking about Vince Staples, he's been on Def Jam this entire time, even though he never became a superstar in the traditional hit-making sense. Now that he's moved over to the Motown, but he's still under the UMG label, I feel like Vince is in a great place where there's not pressure to be a radio chart topper, and he can just kind of stick to his sound, stick to his desires, and make really impressive music. I mean, at this point, Vince has several very strong albums under his belt. Oftentimes, they're quite short track lists as well. He's pretty concise. After Kendrick and Tyler, Vince to me is the LA rapper, and it's fucking awesome. I think he's great. He's still got a lot of, I think, juice left in the tank. He's only 30 now, or 31 almost. So it's been quite the journey. He's been quite prolific, and I expect that to continue. The guy's obviously funny as a celebrity, but as a rapper, I think he really backs it up with the music. And if you're a fan of Vince, back then, you're probably still a fan now because he's been very consistent, even though he hasn't stayed exactly the same the entire time. It's great to see. But yeah, let me know, what was your favorite song on Vince Staples' latest album, Dark Times? What do you want to hear from him next? And for more rap reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, the new action film from George Miller. 9 years after Mad Max Fury Road, Miller has returned to the franchise with a prequel starring Anya Taylor-Joy as Furiosa, taking over the role debuted by Charlize Theron in Fury Road. And of course, this movie comes with a lot of expectations, a lot of baggage, you could say, because Mad Max Fury Road, back in 2015, only one of the greatest films of the 21st century, one of the greatest action films of all times, a complete cinematic masterpiece that was an Oscar force when it came out, but has really stood the test of time and has a really certified legacy. And making a prequel or sequel to that film, given its immense success, was going to be a tall task. And George Miller, he made 3,000 Years of Longing a few years ago, but really, he's been gearing up to make something else in the Mad Max world this whole time. And funny enough, Furiosa, this script was actually developed over many years long ago. I mean, at one point, the Furiosa movie, the Furiosa story, was going to come out before Fury Road. And then at another point, Fury Road and Furiosa were going to shoot back to back. So this is a story that Miller has, co-developed for a long time, and now we're finally getting it. 9 years after Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa delivers as one of the great movie prequels. Does this stand up to the immense greatness of one of the greatest action films and movies of all time in Fury Road? No, of course it doesn't. But Furiosa still really brings you back to what made Fury Road so special. George Miller's amazing blend of physical and virtual effects, a sense of action filmmaking, a sense of scale, a sense of speed. It's just a visual feast once again. Some of the early concerns about the Furiosa trailer completely unfounded. This movie looks spectacular, even if there's a little bit more CGI this time around. But really the core tenet of the rhythm of Mad Max, specifically Fury Road, remains with Furiosa. This is a film with not a lot of dialogue. It's really more about action propelling your story forward. And yes, Furiosa has a lot more narrative. Furiosa, this is a much grander epic over 15 years, but I think it actually really works. Chris Hemsworth steals the show in a certain sense as Dementis, a great use of his charisma, and Anya Taylor-Joy having large shoes to fill, taking over the role of Furiosa from Charlize Theron. I think she does a great job because, once again, like Theron, Taylor-Joy commands a lot of presence with just her gaze, with just her stature, and it's exactly what you need in a role like this. Not going to be a lot of grandstanding, a lot of speechifying. Furiosa has an absolutely breathtaking set piece once again. I think the Stowaway to Nowhere scene where Furiosa stows aboard the war rig piloted by Tom Burke. They get attacked by raiders, and they are attacking from the sky as well as the air. It's a complete evolution of the iconic sequence from Fury Road. It's absolutely spectacular. And yeah, I think maybe you can quibble with some of the narrativizing that Furiosa does, again, because it's such a grander story, and it actually skips ahead and skips across some things that are a bit maybe surprising, things you'd be interested in. I think chief among those would be the dynamic between Tom Burke's Praetorian Jack character and Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa. They seemingly skip ahead of her apprenticing under him and learning all the skills and the tools of the trade to be a road warrior in the wasteland. I get it though, because it's immediately following up the amazing stowaway sequence, which is the signature action set piece of the film. You don't have to then do a lesser montage version. We understand that she just picked it up and kept things going. I get it. And the other thing that they kind of skip across would be the open warfare, open conflict between Dementis and Immortan Joe. But again, I don't really mind it too much. Ultimately, it's so funny to think about how Mad Max has gotten to this point. I mean, this is a franchise that began, it's almost as old as Star Wars, right? Was it 79, the first Mad Max film with Mel Gibson? And there was such a long time between Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road, but really, it's not a franchise that requires much investment in its lore, investment in its world building, but it is there if you're interested in it. And I think a big part of that, and why these movies, especially these two recent ones, work so well, is because the movies are just so propulsive and they're so kinetic, but they're also so coherent in terms of visually what they communicate to you, that you don't need to be super invested in the development of plot, because that's not really what this movie is trying to convey to you, and that's not what this movie needs to do to sing. You think of how prequels work, right? A lot of times prequels, legacy sequels, these types of movies often feel kind of craven or overly referential, moments for the audience to do the Leo meme and point at the camera and say, hey, I got that reference. Are there moments like that in Furiosa if you want to find them? Sure, there's a few recurring characters. Immortan Joe, of course, comes back in the fold, portrayed by a new actor. The original actor has since passed. Some of his crew return as well from Fury Road. It's kind of fun, I guess, to actually go to Gastown, go to the Bullet Farm locations and characters referenced in Fury Road that we don't actually see. Kind of cool if you're in the mood for it, so to speak, as someone who is a big fan of Fury Road. But you don't need to have any reference to any of that to enjoy these movies, to understand what's going on, to follow how it's going. So honestly, Furiosa really gets right to the ripping, as it were, with that first, I think, great set piece where Furiosa gets kidnapped by raiders from Dementis' crew, taken from the Green Place. The Green Place that in Fury Road we only hear of as some aspirational place that they can leave the Citadel and go find, right? Furiosa steals all of Immortan Joe's wives, frees them, and then take them to the Green Place where she was from before she was taken away. and they find that swamp, and that was all that was left. We actually see it briefly in the beginning of Furiosa in all its glory, and Furiosa gets taken, and meanwhile, one of her mothers, from the Green Place, tries to save her. Chases her down, trying to rescue her. It's an amazing sequence featuring Charlie Fraser, who made her film debut in Anyone But You as one of the girlfriends, and she's like amazing in this movie in a small role in the very first act, and just awesome like motorcycle chase, like it's fucking cool. And to most movies, that's like the signature set piece they would have, but like that like quickly gets eclipsed, of course, as Furiosa progresses. And I gotta say, like Dementis as just a new figure in this mold, this world of the wasteland, like fits right in. And Hemsworth really, I think, wears the character like a glove, And honestly, it's kind of fitting that you have Hemsworth in a Mad Max film, arguably the most famous Australian actor, certainly right now, in the most famous Australian film franchise of all time, from arguably the greatest Australian film director in George Miller. Like, it's pretty awesome to see that kind of synergy, I guess you could say. But it's a really great use of his talents, because there's a comedic element to the performance. Obviously, Hemsworth exudes charisma, but it doesn't just feel like he's another one of the warlords of the wasteland that we come to know, like one of Immortan Joe's cronies, one of those type of people. There's like a certain like goal to his empire building, I guess you could say. Even maybe if it's a false facade, hard to say. He certainly makes blunders throughout the film in terms of managing his resources, but like it feels like a lived-in character. It's pretty cool. And unsurprisingly, like right from the get-go, when you meet Dementis and his crew, there's all kinds of Mad Max isms, right? Like crazy costume design, just weird things in the background, whether it's costume design, vehicle design, just random production design, like concepts, right? It's almost Star Wars-esque how things are just kind of in the background and intriguing, even if it's completely superficial. Like again, like you're at the Morton Joe's Citadel, it's the same kind of thing from Fury Road to now, where it's like there's just things in the background that look weird, look crazy, look ridiculous, right? Like the guy playing the guitar for Morton Joe on the rig, right? Just crazy detail, crazy fun things. Dementis has the guy with the devil horns. He has the history man, the old man who speaks all the tales and stuff. It's pretty amusing. Going in, I wasn't exactly sure how much like direct tie-in this would lead to Fury Road per se, but it really ends up being like a direct prequel to Fury Road. And Morton Joe and the Citadel are a huge aspect of this film. So in a sense, as a core prequel, it's pretty fun to like go back. Like we even go into the vault and see the wives chilling, like it's a lot of familiar stuff in here. But I think the Furiosa character, which again is not actually played by Anya Taylor-Joy for the first hour of the film, it's pretty great. I have to shout out Aaliyah Brown, a young Australian actress who plays young Furiosa. I think she's pretty good too. Again, it's a role rather that requires a lot of physicality, a lot of presence, because it's not a lot of lines. And I think both young Furiosa is great, but then once we make this big time skip, 15 years of Furiosa scrapping, hiding, pretending to be a war boy at the Citadel, then Furiosa now it's Anya Taylor-Joy. And I think Anya does a really nice job in the role again, because she has presence, she has stature, and in the set pieces, she really stands out. Obviously, with the help of her stunt double, of course, but I think she does a great job. And it's cool now to reflect on the Furiosa character, because it's now, I think, up there in terms of like great film characters played by more than one actor, and great film characters that have more than one great performance. I'm not saying Furiosa is Don Corleone, for example, but I think Theron and Taylor-Joy, both one of the great actresses of their respective generations, now both doing the part. It's pretty awesome. I've mentioned the stowaway sequence, but I really think like that's like the moment in this film, because it's once again a jaw dropper, like out of your body experience type thing. Much like how Fury Road goes, this takes that to the next level, where it's like, how the fuck do they make something like this? Like I think that rarely, right? Things like John Wick or Mission Impossible, but like things like this with the level of practical effects of watching these explosions, that a lot of them are real, watching all these things with these cars. But now we're like in the air and we're leveling up from like the pole vaulting war boys to now we have these guys attacking from the sky in almost like parachutes, and the war rig has a mobile crane arm that's gonna fucking defend and shit. The thing in the back, I forget what they call it, that spins. Really awesome visual with the sail getting sucked in at the end. It's an epic sequence. Immediately rewatchable for sure. I want to see it again. It's so good. And Tom Burke, I think Tom Burke breaking out in The Souvenir, he actually was not the first choice for this role. It was going to be Yahya Abdul-Mateen, but he had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. I would love to know what that was because this is a movie you want to be in. But Burke was actually pretty cool. And I think the dynamic between Tom Burke's Praetorian Jack character, who's like a veteran leader, road warrior for Immortan Joe, Jack, and Furiosa, like the dynamic that they build in that amazing sequence. Like I said, you actually buy the fact that we don't see any of their future exploits together. I totally get it. And then when you take it to the next amazing set piece where they attack or end up having to attack and and flee Bullet Farm, when Dementis has actually gone ahead and taken it from Immortan Joe's forces unknowingly to everyone else. That sequence is fucking awesome as Furiosa is like doing Overwatch with the sniper as Jack is driving the rig in like defense, trying to buy her time and stuff. Amazing sequence. And then leading up to, I think, like a really great like coda where Jack gets killed by Dementis once they get captured. Again, like I kind of bought their dynamic, even if we didn't spend a ton of time with it per se. And I think Dementis being demented, as it were, sadistic, you could say. They do it a few times, showing you that, and I think you buy into it. And in the process, we also get to see how did Furiosa lose her arm. Of course, in Fury Road, Charlize Theron only has one full arm. You know why now, watching Furiosa, the film, although it's not like a gotcha scene, perchance. It's actually, I think, done in the flow of the film, doesn't stand out as like something super obvious or anything. I thought it was pretty good, pretty well done. Obviously, very curious how the box office does for this movie. It's not going to do bad. It's going to open fine in the US, but I think the real key with this is how successful is Furiosa overseas, where, Mad Max Fury Road also is pretty successful overseas, but the movie still made, a little under 400 million, so not a massive hit per se, but certainly successful enough to justify it. And I mean, like, this is a film that is both a blockbuster, but it's also fucking art. Like the amount of craft that goes into making these movies, it's so obvious that there's so much value to it. So I'm not worried about the film performing at all. Miller says he has more stories to tell, and I think the development process of Mad Max films over the last 20 years, 25 years at this point, it's very up and down. And you can read all about that. He has allegedly been developing both a sequel to Fury Road as he was developing and getting ready to make Furiosa, the prequel. So we'll see where we go with that. Ultimately, I think Furiosa will be successful. Curious about the Oscars as well. Of course, Fury Road really kind of cleaning up, especially on the down ballot, the way few movies can do. And now 9 years later, does it have quite that same sheen? Probably going to say no, especially in a year where it's going to be competing in a lot of the same categories with Dune Part 2. Like, I'm going to lean Dune getting the glory this time around, which is no shots at Furiosa at all. It's just kind of the new flavor, you could say. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is a W for everyone involved. Certainly for George Miller, finding a way to follow up Fury Road and still really wow in an awesome way. Not just doing the exact same thing again. Like, I think the fact that the narrative is a lot more expansive this time around is a big differentiator for this film. Big W for Chris Hemsworth is a great use of his talents, great use of his star power. W for Anya Taylor-Joy. I think it's another notch in her belt as one of the greats of this acting generation for sure. And W for Warner Brothers, which is having a great year just like it had a great 2023. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga? How did you like it in comparison to Fury Road on its own? What's your favorite thing about it? And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do for the pod this week. Next week, I'm going to catch up on two things I missed this past week: the new aespa album and the conclusion of HBO's The Sympathizer. And then also, we're going to talk about the conclusion of Hack Season 3, the premiere of the new Star Wars show, The Acolyte, on Disney Plus, the new anime film, Haikyuu, The Dumpster Battle, and also the premiere of Clipped, about the Los Angeles Clippers. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify post link below. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.